unique features of the extractor line?
Well, one of the unique features is one that you've already mentioned, which is the independent programmability of the unit, specifically with regard to brew time and volume. Brew time is completely segmented from the volume settings. So if I adjust the time in programming, I'll have no impact on the volume, and vice versa. If I program volume, it'll have no impact on time. So true flexibility between those two. So if I want a 1.5 gallon brew, and I want it to brew for 4 minutes, I can do that. Or if I want to increase the time and not change the volume, I can do that as well. And that gives us true flexibility for our extraction.
So you're not restricted by a range of volume or a range of time?
Correct.
Please visit our resource center and refer to our Ask the Expert series on programming. And we have basic programming from the E line as well as the EE extractor line. And we also have advanced diagnostics and the relay testing. Please also refer to the Pocket Programming Guide as kind of a cheat sheet for the parameters.
Now, another area that makes our extractor line of coffee brewers unique is the cascading spray dome, or what we like to call the CSD. And what's unique about this is that it actually has no holes for the water to flow through. It actually has channels that the water flows through, so there's no area for water or for scale to actually collect on. It does build up a little bit of scale, but it's not the type of thing that you have to be cleaning on a regular basis. And when you do clean it, it's actually very easy to do.
In our resource center, we have 2 Ask the Expert videos on our cascading spray domes. One of them is comparing the cascading spray dome to the old style metal spray plate. Our other video is discussing the 3 different sizes of the cascading spray domes for the different extractor coffee brewers.
And another great thing about the cascading spray dome, there's nothing mechanical that holds it in place. It's held in place by magnets. You just take it, you put it in place, and the magnets take it from your hand. Another thing that is unique about the extractor line of coffee brewers is that we use bypass. Some of the lines actually have that, the 2040 and the 2050 especially. And the way the bypass works, if I can steal that from you, there's a valve that will open up and allow water to pass through in the corner of the brew basket here. And that water goes around the outside of the grounds so that it never comes in contact with the coffee itself.
So when you remove this, you can actually see the bypass right here.
Exactly, you would be able to do that.
Please refer to our resource center again for another Ask the Expert video on dialing in the recipe. We also have a podcast on good brewing execution that will answer questions that you may have about a bypass feature.
And you mentioned about if you were to pull the basket out, you could see that. Well, in reality, you can't actually pull the basket during a brew cycle because this brewer has brew basket locks on it. So the brew basket will actually be locked in place during a brew cycle. So in reality, if you tried to pull the basket out, you wouldn't be able to, at least not on the 2050s or the 2040s. And there's a special series of the 2030s that applies to as well. The other thing that's really a nice feature of the extractor line of brewers is that, especially with the 2052, it can be converted from single phase to 3-phase in the field very easily. And that, we have found, has been a real help to a lot of our customers. The technicians who install them and the individuals who have to spec the equipment, it just makes their job that much easier. And there's another little feature of our single brewers, the 2030s and 2040s, that is really convenient as well, which is being able to convert the unit from a 120-volt system to a 120/208 to 240 system, meaning now you've brought it up to the specification of 208 volts or 240, whatever the location has. And it's really convenient so that if they are a low volume place, you can leave it 120 volts. As their business grows, you can convert that to that 208 to 240 machine, and now you've increased its productivity.
If you have any questions regarding the specs of our extractor line, please refer to our website, and under Equipment and under Extractors, you can go to any of our brewers, and on that product page, you can refer to our user's guides and our spec sheets. Shane, we get a lot of questions about our extractor line during trade shows, but we have 3 in particular. The first one is how many cups does this do?
Well, that's a good question, but ultimately it's not an easy question to answer. And that's because there's a lot of variables that play into how much a particular coffee brewer can produce. From the voltage that is going to the unit, to the kilowatt rating of the heating elements, is it single phase or three phase, the temperature of the water coming into the unit, the ambient temperature. All of these factors and even a few other little factors play in to the productivity of a piece of equipment. And that's one of the challenges when you're trying to size a piece of equipment and answer that question. But we can give general rules of thumb that really do help to answer that question, but they may be a little bit less per hour, or it could be a little bit more depending on those variables.
Please visit our resource center. There's a document called Selecting the Right Equipment, and gives you a general overview of our extractor line and the number of cups per hour that each one can do based on the parameters that Shane just spoke about. Another question that we frequently get is, how much coffee should I use?
Well, that's another question that's not that easy to answer as well. First off, if you're using coffee from a particular coffee roaster, you would always want to reference them as a source for that information. The next thing is, if you're using your own coffee, a good rule of thumb is to use what the SCAA uses as a rule of thumb, which is 3.75 ounces to 4.25 ounces. That range is based on a lot of experimentation and determining what makes a good quality cup of coffee. And it really depends on the blend of coffee that you're using, the roast, the granular size, all of that plays into that. And it takes a little bit of tweaking back and forth to get. But if you're working with the roaster really can help you with that.
We have 2 podcasts in our resource center that address this very issue. Our technical FAQs podcast, as well as our Good Brewing Execution podcast. Another common question that we get at trade shows is, I have a water softener. Is that okay?
Well, the short answer to that question is no. But the more detailed answer to the question really breaks down to the water softening systems use an ion exchange, and they use sodium chloride as the medium for exchanging a hard water molecule for a soft water, which would be the salt. So you're getting basically an ion for ion exchange. So you're taking hard water minerals out and you're putting salt into your water. What that ultimately does to the end product is the problem. The end product ultimately, when the water hits the grounds, it actually creates a soapy substance which then blinds the filter. It's kind of a chemical reaction. It foams up, it makes the coffee float, creates all kinds of havoc with the brew cycle. Now, if you are capable of actually brewing the softened water, then the end product tends to come out over-extracted because the water is suspended in the basket for too long. So ultimately, while water treatment is good, water softening in and of itself is not a good practice. We would actually recommend doing a water treatment system more along the lines of an RO system if you had to do that type of water treatment.
On our website, we have 2 interviews that address water quality. Please go to our website and click on our interviews, and we have an interview with Skip Finley from Cirqua, as well as Tony Fisher from Everpure.